Welcome to Remote First Innovators, the podcast for leaders who are scaling companies built for the modern world. We sit down with founders and experts in distributed work to explore how they've broken down barriers and solved the real-world challenges of growing and running remote teams. Each episode dives into practical strategies for onboarding, IT, security, compliance, and everything it takes to build a thriving distributed business. No fluff, no theory, just what works when your team is everywhere and operations never stop. Here's your host, Jake Gump.
Welcome to another episode of Remote First Innovators. Today, we're featuring a serial entrepreneur from the Outer Banks of North Carolina with a strong background in logistics and IT. Married with 3 kids, he's spent the last 20 years building and consulting for multiple businesses across diverse industries. He owns companies spanning IT infrastructure, AI, title insurance, national restoration, and disaster response. With a musical background and a Grammy nomination, Josh brings an innovation and creative approach to business, often likening his ventures to composing songs, blending strategy, vision, and execution into a harmonious success. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, I need to put that on my tombstone. That sounds really cool. I don't know who
Yeah,
that guy
man.
is. No, it's all good, man. It's fun when you can tell ChatGPT to write a bio based on your LinkedIn, and it comes up with some fancy thing like that. So anyway, I'm not gonna take credit for any of it.
Well, I'm sure you'll probably be like most of us, and the most important thing is married with 3 kids,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I know all that stuff's awesome, but,
I
we're
should
here to talk.
actually, you know what I should do? I should take what you just read and put it on a plaque and let my kids read it every morning.
Don't give it to your wife.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, oh yeah. My wife, yeah, she'd throw it at me. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good. I'm very blessed. Very
yeah,
blessed.
man, absolutely. Let's dive right in, man. I'm you got so many, you got a lot of businesses, right? And I just wanna, kind of start what ties all of, IT and AI and, titles and, disaster response. How did you get into all that?
Um, I have no idea. I have no idea. But I just uh, I have been a generalist at best, my entire life. Right. It was all I could do to get out of high school. Um, and this was back when if you didn't go to college, you're basically going to be living in a van down by the river. Back in the early to mid '90s, that was pretty much the prevailing wind. And but I've always had this kind of innate ability to kind of say what if and be very comfortable with risk and and so it just kind of came natural for me because my dad was a preacher and he didn't know anything about business or sports or anything like that, but he did know a lot about theology, right? So that was helpful. Um, but I remember he came to me when I was about 10 years old and he said, hey, 'cause this is back when preachers used to get paid like $5 a year, And I remember him coming to me and saying, "Hey, if you want to get something, if you want to go do something or whatever, like you're gonna have to figure out a way to make money and go do it, right? And I'm gonna help you as much as I can, but I can put a roof over your head." And so that kind of spawned this kind of entrepreneurial spirit in me that I think I was born with for sure. And um, I started getting connected to some of the local entrepreneurs in the church, and then also in our local little beach town in the Outer Banks, and that kind of gave me a clue of like, hey, these guys just created a solution in the marketplace because it needed to be solved, right? And for me, I was like, well, if I can put pieces of the puzzle together, then that's all that I need to do. I'd rather partner with someone that's technically proficient at whatever this is, and then I'll put in some additional pieces, and now we got something that's worth it. So I have had a very diverse background. A lot of my friends call me Forrest Gump without the running part yet. I haven't started running yet, but I've had just a dramatic shift from time to time through my journey, and I am absolutely blessed to have had seen a lot of different vantage points along the way. So yeah, so there's no real rhyme or reason. I never woke up in the morning saying I want to do this, but I just I love being able to say what if, and not having any kind of box to fit in. Like I'm not like an electrical engineer, or I'm not an architect, or I'm not a culinary artist. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of moldable to whatever the piece is. So that's how I kind of fell into all these different random things.
That's awesome. 3 of your companies are fully remote, and I think you're in a unique spot where you've got some, offices that are still meeting together, and then you got some companies that are fully remote. So I think it would be really great for the listeners just to kind of, talk about, the differences of the two, and, why does remote work? And, why do you still keep people on site?
Yep. So I've kind of taken a tack that it is just very dependent on the industry, right? And what your particular value is for that organization, right? And so if you're someone that is customer facing, if you're someone that is in a creative role, if you're someone that is in a more social, forward facing position, then it's almost impossible to do your job at any real benefit if you're not engaging with humans on a regular basis, right? But if your background is, say, on the IT side, and you don't have to even talk to anybody, you just have to respond to an email or two, or code, or do all these different things, then most of the guys that I knew and gals that were really good at that were not good at the human component piece of it, right? That was not their strength, and that's not something they love to do. So, finding those individual personalities with the skill set that they have, and then kind of building an atmosphere, or maybe like a sandbox for them to be in, to me was more valuable in terms of productivity and culture for the organization than it was for me just to say everybody's got to be in the office today, because in a lot of cases technology has allowed for that not to be necessarily as important. But if you're customer facing role and you're not out seeing customers, and that's a bad thing, right? And if you're in the business of engaging with humans on a regular basis, and your role is to be creative with other folks on the team, then it's really hard to do that on Zoom. There's a different energy when you're in a room with someone. So I've always elected to saying, hey, if you're in that particular role, let's get together. It doesn't have to be every day, but it needs to be, as often as we can, because that's where the energy comes from.
Now, Rhythmic Title launched 100% remote, in January, and that's your most recent company, right?
Yep. Hmm.
Um, Now, what would you think how did you design that from day 1, compared to maybe a traditional title shop?
Well, there's a very long story to that, but the nuts and bolts of it is that I looked to see what the market demanded, and then I looked to see what the gap was between being able to produce what the market demands and a profitable company. And the thing that was in the between of that was the traditional model of going to an office, having a bunch of people as professional typists working on all of these manual minutia tasks that could be replaced by technology. And so for me, when I was getting this set up and I was hearing how title was being produced in North Carolina specifically, because it's a title only state, it's different than most states out there. I'm like, there is zero need for you to have office space. There's zero need for you to have a bunch of people that are just data entry people. We should just have the systems integrated together so that there's a seamless communication between the two, so that you're only having to use the human component for QC, and that's it. Right. And so there is no need to burden the organization with all these ancillary costs and operational costs when you're trying to compete in the marketplace, right? And so I said, okay, this is what the market demands. This is what we can produce. And so how efficiently can we produce said item for the marketplace? And that's how we got this business model launched. And now, because of our efficiency, our profit profile is the highest in the industry. And so now we're talking with traditional title companies in North Carolina to then white label our service for them on the back office side so that they can still be forward facing to their customers that they've had for 20, 30 years and honor those relationships well. And we can collaborate to move this industry forward, right? So that to me is a beautiful thing that happens when you don't say, "These are my customers and this is my process and I'm not gonna change," you know? I love the idea of collaborating, even if they're technically competitors. It's a lot better if you can collaborate if you have the same vision, right?
That's really interesting in the fact that, that's technically your competitor and you guys are actually partnering together to serve a client. And there is
1,000%,
still
because our client as a industry is the home buyer.
right.
And ultimately, if we're serving that home buyer well, then everybody in that food chain wins. It's called an all shall prosper business model, right? So from the real estate agent, the lender, the closing attorney, the title company, the insurance, like all of those things that come into play with that allow for that home buyer to be served well. And if we start getting into the what's on your chest, and today I'm wearing some, you know, a lot of logos here for some reason here. I guess it's the way it rolls, but it's not about the logo. It's about being able to serve that homeowner well. And so if you have the same vision that's generous to that homeowner, then both companies can be successful.
What are some of the when I'm thinking about, you know, having a relationship with your client, in this instance a home buyer, there's and I'm being in the realm of IT, there's a lot of security items out there. And one thing that's kind of popped up that, in my friends group is wire fraud. And you were kind of like, you had like, well, I got attorneys handling this, right? So talk a little bit about you also have an IT background, so maybe give some insights into the security that you have to put in place in the business now, and something that makes the homeowners feel better about doing business in 2025.
Hey, that is a huge topic right now. I mean, wire fraud, fraud in general is a huge deal. Seller impersonation, email scams, all types of things. I have a lot of horror stories from folks of mine that are peers in the industry, right? And so from a title company's perspective, it is it's different for us in North Carolina because the attorneys handle the escrow and the wiring and transferring of funds. But in other states that we operate in, we would handle the escrow and title because the traditional title company state, right? So when you go buy a house, you're going to the title company in, Indiana versus in North Carolina, you go to the closing attorney. So anyway, um, that being said, there's a lot of products in the marketplace that become I wouldn't say a firewall, but it becomes like a protection. Certified is a great one that's really popular in our industry that deals with the wire fraud issue from a protection standpoint. And there's a lot of opportunity for that. But the way I see this happening down the road is more of a blockchain model, and and the opportunity for fraud is essentially eliminated when you're on that type of infrastructure, right? From a transaction um, uh, operational capacity, right? And so I think that our industry will eventually get there. It's already being done right now in some states, like in Florida. There's a company down there right now that I've been talking to that's already producing closings and escrow all on the blockchain. So it's pretty powerful to see those tools already starting to come to the market.
What are some of the tools that your staff uses to stay connected and communicate? And I think about culture when I think about office, and employees and stuff. What are some of those items you mentioned? Kind of just that you meet with your employees personally, but how do they stay in good contact being in a remote environment?
Um, well, first of all, you have to be intentional about it, and you have to know the individual personalities of your team and know how to communicate with them on a level that they can receive, right? Because there's some people that are, it's kind of like the old marriage stuff that you go through when you get married, the love languages and all these types of things, right? And so I mean, there's some folks in the office that would love for you just to spend some time with them to answer their questions and to mentor them, right? And then there's other folks in the office that, man, if you just knock something out for them or made their life a little easier in terms of an act of service, like it changes their whole perception of their role, right? And the more that you can foster a good culture, the more powerful your organization will be, right? And so for me, it's intentionally going above and beyond to engage with them on a personal level, not a corporate level. If you're just dealing with folks on a corporate level, um, uh, it can get glossed over and it just becomes a boss and employee relationship. But if you genuinely care about the fact that they just had a kid or that they're getting married or there's a bereavement involved with someone that passed or they were able to buy their first home, like, and if you celebrate these wins and then you're also there to support them when there's losses, I think that that can be done digitally, that can be done in person, and that can be done in a hybrid model as well. And so as leaders, we have to allow ourselves the flexibility to be moldable to your individual employees' needs, so that collectively you can move the organization's goals forward, right? And so for me, it's about okay, knowing your individual guy and gal and saying, okay, what is going to make an impact in their role and in their life in the season that they're in? Because sometimes in your 20s, they're not your interests are not the same as when you're in your 30s or your 40s, 50s. Like it changes dramatically, right? And so if you don't acknowledge that, it's not a one size fits all. Like according to our handbook, it says blah 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 blah. But it's like, bro, homeboy started here like 11 years ago. Now he's got 3 kids. He doesn't care about, Taco Tuesday. He's got to get home for soccer practice, right? And so knowing your people and understanding how to work with these remote roles and in-person roles, I think totally depends on your ability to connect with your people.
I love that. Often get told by my wife that I'm a chameleon, and I just like to tell her, I was like, I'm just meeting people where they're at, right? And there's, a lot of times people like to be sold to the way that they sell. And there's a lot of different language out there. And it's very I love to hear that in regards to your leadership style that you're meeting people where they're at and they're, you're being there for them. I think that's missing in corporate culture. You're a number, and that's when you have that's what the small businesses really do power America. You don't have to give all of your tips and tricks, but I did want to kind of get into operationally some things from a remote standpoint. Um, you know, a lot of times when I talk to business owners, they have issues with just hiring and firing people, and then, they have a huge Excel checklist that they have to go down when they hire somebody, and then when someone decides to, take their next job and leave their company, they have to make sure that all the access is cut, and then they're like, "What did they even have access to?" And then they're like, gosh, I'm doing an audit and I found, licenses that the same person that left 2 years ago. And so just if you could, how do you streamline that? And what are some of the challenges that you've had managing remote onboarding and offboarding and the devices and access and the checklists and just how have you overcame them?
Well, first and foremost, having a competent managed service provider, an MSP, is crucial because every business rolls around in multiple technology applications, right? And so I, there's stuff that we're using in different organizations that I'm a part of or that I have interest in that I have zero concept of how it works or when it works or what it's being used for or any of that, right? Um, but I have a great relationship with an MSP that handles the licensing, the protections, the auditing, all the things that I don't want to have to try and figure out, or my HR people don't want to have to figure it out, or operational people don't want to have to figure out. So that's a huge tip: is folks that don't have a relationship with an MSP, if you have more than 3 people, you gotta have one, right? And Anything less than 3 people is also very valuable because do you want to deal with your email issues when so and so decides to tap out, or if you get hacked or any of those types of things, it's worth the investment. But on the other side, another I guess tip that I have is anytime I have a remote meeting with one of our team members, I always have something sent to them that's unique to them that's delivered before our meeting. And so whether that be a pair of slippers for Florida State, whether that be a box of Tate's cookies from New York, whether that be a Starbucks gift card so we can drink a coffee together. There's something that I can give to them that's going to enhance their moment in that day that we can then collaborate with on whatever task we're trying to execute. And so for me, personalizing a gift to that individual every time we meet in a virtual way, to me is a game changer. So it's been very, very good for me to establish rapport with, especially for new team members. Um, and the counterbalance of that, I mean, I just had to let someone go last week that did everything right. And we tried to do everything right on an operational level, but it just wasn't working. It just wasn't jiving, right? And the end of anything is always hard. Even if we both know it doesn't feel good from our vantage points, right? And so me saying to this person, "Hey, be blessed in your next journey. How can I help you with this next journey because our infrastructure doesn't allow for you to succeed in the capacity that you want to succeed in," right? And it's hard for me because this was a revenue producing person, right? And there's a lot of prevailing wind out there saying, "Hey, anybody that's producing revenue is valuable." No, it's not the case, right? If how that revenue is being produced is drawing down on the organization and our framework doesn't match their framework, hey, we need to protect the culture of the organization and the speed of which we're able to make these deliveries. And so for us, it's a bless them as they go and bless them as they're here type of model, right? But I still got my feelings hurt. They got their feelings hurt, right? And I'm hoping that there's still a bridge there down the road because you never know the way the world goes, right? But but yeah, so even on an exit, there has to be empathy and there has to be um, a selflessness there, right? And you have to go above and beyond to kind of do that. And even when you do that, it still feels bad, right? Someone still gets their feelings hurt. And so there's no way around that because we're all humans and we still act like these things, right? And so on the front end, do everything you can to empower your team, you giving them the tools, the managed service provider that handles all their email issues and all their computer issues and virus issues and hacking issues, and then and then be personalized to their existence within the organization. And if they ever have a chance where they're moving on to a different season of life, you got to bless them on their way out too.
Just want to cue a little thing for Robert, our owner. I love Amazon gift cards.
Yeah.
So, if you want to take this tip from Josh, no, I'm kidding. He actually does do a great job. He does give gifts every once in a while to our staff. Just needed to make sure that Robert knew that we appreciated those gifts. One thing we do
It doesn't,
internally.
by the way, Robert, I haven't met Robert, but by the way, Robert, it doesn't have to be extravagant. It just has to be thoughtful.
There you go.
I had one of our team members, their son graduated from Ohio State in their pilot program, and
Wow.
they were overjoyed about it. And I wanted to help celebrate that, so I went to Amazon and I was like, "What would you give someone who just graduated from pilot school?" And so I'm Googling around, and thanks to the AI that's in the wonderful world of Amazon, I found these socks that said left rudder, right rudder socks, right?
Yeah, that's great.
And so I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And it was like $9 or something. I don't know what it was, but I was able to then send that to the son as a congratulatory thing, and it went very well. It got across what we were trying to celebrate with, and so Robert, I'm gonna call you out. It doesn't have to be extravagant, even those are cool. Um, just be thoughtful.
Well, he most recently bought me a steak, and he knows the quickest way to my heart is food. So, kudos to that, Robert. That ribeye was fantastic. Thank you.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Um,
Load
so
them up.
so yeah, it was a little bit more expensive than $9 though. So the how about I've been seeing a lot of companies that specialize in group events for remote companies where they have these kind of getaways and they go meet somewhere. Have you done that? I'm just curious. And what's your experience been like? Was it worth the how do you say that?
1000%. It's yeah. It's that human engagement in a unfamiliar area or unfamiliar place. It's usually somewhere that is vastly different than where they live and where they work, and it's like, hey, how do we celebrate the wins that we've had this year? How do we collaborate on what we want to do moving forward? And it's these breakaway sessions, and sometimes you can do that even in your own community, right? I've done that before where we went in and stayed at a super sweet hotel, for a, an overnight, right? And it was 30 minutes from my house. Um, but just getting away and digging in with your team is very, very powerful because, it changes I guess the cadence that they're currently on, and it kinda shakes it up a little bit, and so quarterly meetings like that are incredible. Those are incredible things to do from a team perspective, because 'cause you're gonna get feedback and you're gonna get feelings and emotions that are coming out. You're gonna get raw data that you're able to then process as a leader and as an organization to help you be better for that next coming quarter, right? And so one of the best companies I've ever worked with on a consulting basis was Hendrick Automotive Group that does a phenomenal job at this. And so their leaders have um, coaching from John Maxwell's organization, which is incredible on a daily basis. They have an intentional daily huddle with this type of engagement. But then quarterly, their leaders go away to some place in the market, whether that be Atlanta, Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina, different places, and they bring all the leaders into a room for 48 hours, 72 hours maybe, and they just hammer down on things that they want to accomplish and work on, and then celebrate what has happened in that previous quarter. And it is a dynamic way to do team building for a lot of those folks are not seeing each other every day, just on email or on Zoom, right? So that's how you build a really good camaraderie, and I think Hendrick Organization does a phenomenal job at that.
Was there one event that you went to that you thought was the best? I mean, obviously, you said you had an event that was 30 minutes away, and it was great. But is there one that you were like, man, if I had to just do one and choose one, this is what I would be doing.
Um, Selfishly, it was, and this is something that I hit on all the time. I talk about on LinkedIn a lot. I talk about on socials a lot. Is personal development, right? And so I love digging in and pouring into our team, but equally as much, I got to work on myself, right? And so I've been intentionally going and doing these mini retreats for myself personally, where I go with peers that are leading organizations that are similar to mine, and we just mastermind together and we work on things collectively to be better leaders. Those have been extremely impactful to me in my journey, and I've um, I guess, a lot more intentional about doing that often. And so, yeah, I just did one out in Wyoming with a bunch of leaders. I do that every year now. I there's a thing in the title industry called large agents. It's sponsored by Alta, which is American Land Title Association, and there's just a select number of guys that meet certain criterias that we all get in a room and we just work on each other to be better leaders of our title companies nationwide. And and so that's been dramatically beneficial for my personal development. and that allows me to be a better leader for my team. And so for me, going and sitting at a table or around a campfire or on the top of a mountain somewhere or whatever and saying, okay, how can I be a better version of myself and have the right perspective and make sure my why is centered in the way it needs to be so then I can respond to my team when I'm called upon, right? And so my encouragement to folks out there right now is your personal development is going to be the report card on your ability to lead your team well.
Uh, I've been reading some good books lately. What's on your reading list? Are you a big fan of reading? Are you mostly into the retreats? How do you continually get better every day?
I'm a big podcast guy. Um, I'm on the move all the time. I'm always traveling. I'm always, in my car or on a plane or who knows what. And so podcasts for me are very, very impactful. And so I have a list of guys that I learn from and I grow from. But probably one of the most pivotal books I've ever read that really helped the formation of how I think was the Starts With Why book by Simon Sinek back in 2009. Um, I was in a different season of life at the time. I was touring in a rock band, go figure. And and I happened to come across this book and through a YouTube mini podcast type like video that was terribly done, by someone's probably BlackBerry at the time. And but it Simon Sinek really painted the picture of your why and how organizations should be ran and the health of your personal development, all these types of things. And it really resonated with me and it's stuck with me ever since. And so that's one of my core values is starts with why. And so if you follow me on any of the socials, I'm hammering on that topic all the time.
Love that book. We used to, I think probably at that time I was starting my career in Apple, and Simon Sinek was we would have meetings every week, and that was that book, and Simon Sinek was a normal topic generator for our leadership. And so it definitely is a big formation. It definitely, I think, kind of formed me as well. So we have that in common. Before we go into some, you mentioned band days, and I want to kind of touch on that before we land the plane. But uh, I also wanted to talk about AI because it's a I there's not a podcast that I listen to that doesn't have something about AI, and I've just been in the habit of asking people, how is it impacting you? I think that normally right now it's kind of in its infancy. There is some industries that are really taking advantage of AI. I think it's continuing to grow day by day, just as a person would, right? Some of these language models are getting very sophisticated. The technology is continuing to grow. The AI is growing as well. But is there any AI product that really is like changing the game for you right now? Or is there some that you've tried that you're just like, I'm not going to rely on this yet?
Um, I mean, I think everybody is intertwined with ChatGPT, right? And that is I mean, even when you ask Siri something on your phone, she's saying, "Hey, do you mind if I check with ChatGPT?" Right? It's kind of like it's intertwined into everything at this point. Claude and Grok and all these different ones that are out there that are um extremely powerful tools. Um, but there has been just this boom in capacity and proficiency in whatever industry deploys these types of tools to build off of it and to create uh, efficiencies in their process. And I've been doing it, with as full intention as I can as well in every area that I can touch because the rate of change is dramatically different than when we were growing up, where you would hear about some cool technology, but it was kinda crappy and terrible for, like, months, and then all of a sudden, they would have an update, and it'd be, "Oh, it's a little bit better, but it's still wonky," and whatever. Now, like, you can have a new app or new product that comes out, and then 3 weeks later, it's way, way better, and then a month later, it's exponentially better, and then it's like so, like, even if at concept it can be a vital part of your organization just in 30 days. Like, it's wild to see the evolution. It's just getting faster and faster and faster because the rate of change is such, right? And the technology allows us. So AI is a very, very loose term that's being, beat up right now in the marketplace because everyone's saying AI, AI, AI. But in most cases, it's not real AI. It's just, bots or machine learning or something like that that's masked with a cool logo. But when you run into a particular technology that is real and true, um, it's remarkable what it can do for your organization. And so I am a huge fan of testing and adapting new tools into the process because the more that you can remove friction from your process, the more speed allows. And because back in the day, price, and speed and now I'm drawing a blank. What was the third one? It's price, speed, and
Cheap, good, and fast.
cheap, good, and fast. Right. So the cheap part can still be there. The good part, like the product working and being beneficial for your organization, can be there, and the fast is now there. Like you can have all three now, right? And in the past, you've had to pick two, right? That was the whole thing, right? Because if you want it to be fast and good, you got to pay for it. Or if you want it to be, if you want it to be good and cost less, it's going to take a long time, and all these different things. But now technology has bridged that gap, and if you have an organization that's not adapting new tools or at least testing those tools and talking to your MSP or any of these people that are involved in these spaces all the time, then you will absolutely get crushed in the marketplace. There is no doubt about it. It's like, oh no, I've had many relationships forever, but man, it, I'll give you an example. In North Carolina, it was just maybe 4 or 5 years ago that they started doing e-recordings because for decades before, closing attorneys had to go physically down to the courthouse and register with every one of their deals, like physically. God help you if you're an attorney that said, "Nah, I think that's dumb. It's going to cause a lot of problems." Because there was a lot of hubbub about that. I wasn't even in the title space at the time, and I remember hearing about that in the news in North Carolina. It was all like, "Oh, it's going to be fraud, and it's going to be this, it's going to be that," and it's like, dude, every single attorney now, if you ask them, "Would you like to go on Fridays and file 300 files at the courthouse, or would you rather just click a button when you're in your office?" No one's going to go back to that, right? And that's just a very, very, minimal example of a massive trajectory change in that one particular space that sped up the speed of service that that attorney can then provide to the home buyer, right? Same way with the title searching tools that we created for the titles to be searched, 30-year searches and, 15, 20 minutes, as opposed to physically going to all these different websites and all these different databases and gathering all the information. Like you can just do it right now using a tool. So for me, it is how do we harness this ever changing technology climate that we're in, and how do we allow ourselves to be accountable to that process with someone that is proficient at securing our company and helping guide and direct us in that particular adventure, right? Because we can't be the masters of everything, but we have to try.
Right. Now, what about the data? You I wonder if your MSP has talked to you about ChatGPT. They just released their web browser Atlas. Um, we've through internal testing, we realized that it's training on everything. It may say that, "Oh, yeah, this is all in your," but we really think that it's actually training anything you input in it.
Yep.
It's being trained on it. So I know
You
that they
you you have to absolutely protect that. You can get great feedback and research and all types of things that are done through these systems, but there's actually a case right now that, unfortunately, someone I personally know is dealing with in Texas, where um, this real estate agent was trying to do some market research, and they had an offer on a house, and they uploaded the offer into one of these engines, and was saying, how do I respond to these requests by the homeowner and blah 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 blah. Subsequently, there was another real estate agent that was wanting to find some more information about this one particular property, and when they searched it, this engine said, "Hey, actually, there's an offer on the table right now with these are the parameters, and so we would suggest you do X, Y, and Z," with all of the information of the potential buyer, the homeowner, all of these specific details, the lending requirements, everything. And this other real estate agent is getting that information because this other real estate agent was uploading it. That is a crazy scenario that is unfolding every day right now in the marketplace, right? And so people have to be extremely careful with what they're putting into these machines because um, there's people that I know that have put entire contracts up into these systems and saying, "Hey, parse this out for me, evaluate this for me," and they got social security numbers, they got mother's maiden name and all kinds of crazy personal identifiers that are now in the ecosystem that is now accessible to anybody. I don't care what technology companies say in terms of closed sandbox experiences or private or I got the pro account or whatever. Bro, if you're paying 20 bucks a month for something that's revolutionary to your business, then it's revolutionary to their business.
Right, I would definitely agree with that. You definitely have to read the privacy policy, read how they're actually using your data. I got some I even got slapped on the wrist too because, over the past there's all these new fancy AI tools, and then, security department comes to me and says, "Hey, did you read what they're doing with your data when you put these inputs in here?" Well, I'm just in sales, right? But
Yeah.
you have to be cognizant of what you're giving access to, who you're giving access to your tools, to your business tools. Are they accessing your email and all everything inside there? Um, just want to make everybody aware of that with that browser coming out. And unfortunately, we hear stories like that all the time of,
Yeah.
just, and let's be honest, I think everybody is going to come uh, head forward with compliance and cybersecurity and all of that sooner or later. It's no longer just oh, this random person. It's literally, if you see the stuff that we see week in, week out, you'd be happy to write that security check, or you will definitely double check next time. And so I just want to make everybody aware of that and the cybersecurity. Um, Moving on, I always like to, get a good idea of where people come from. How did they get into where they're at now? You've obviously, drummed for a big company that, traveled all over the US and, come to find out later we even had some, mutual connections. I'm sure we probably bypassed each other along the way at some point. It's really cool to see. But was there something, or some type of, let's say, early childhood experience that maybe your parents or maybe to yourself that you were just like, I'm going to be a business owner, or did it kind of just fall in your lap? I'm just really interested to see how you got to where you are now, and was there anything that kind of made that happen?
Yeah, so I don't think it was one shiny moment, right? It wasn't the yeah, the mountaintop experience that catapulted me into some career as an entrepreneur. I think it was just based off of necessity, really, and having the ability to um, uh, be creative, right? And I knew that I was creative at a very early age, and I've always enjoyed creating. And I got my philosophy in business from playing drums. That was my thing. That's hence the name rhythmic and whatnot that's involved in a lot of things that I do. And I like things that have a rhythm. I like things that have a cadence. And I'll tell you this quick story. And so back in the day, back in my when I was a cooler dude, I keep trying to tell my kids I used to be cool. that we grew up in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We were a bunch of dudes. We were just playing music. We were just having fun. It was a weekend thing, and we never really set out to do it as a full-time thing. And I remember we had rented a storage unit to start writing some music because everyone was complaining how loud it was in a small little beach town. And we rented a storage unit. We're out there sweating our tail off and in the summer and jamming out. And I vividly remember the creation of one of these particular songs. And so I'm creating a tempo, right? I'm doing a tempo. And then our bass player at the time, we just started doing some foundational elements to it. And then our guitar player started riffing over top of it, right? Next thing you know, our other guitar players adding color to it, right? So now it's this whole sonic thing happening. And then our lead singer at the time started, singing out a melody that didn't even have lyrics yet, but we were kind of getting in this groove, right? And something magical started happening where we all had individual skills, but my job was to give us the tempo, right? Our guitar players created the sonic sounds, and the bass and drums gave it the rhythm, and then you got the color and the melodies that are happening, and then the lead singer is vocalizing what became lyrics that then turned all of that into a song. And that song impacted people's lives across the world, and we had no idea that that was gonna be the case. We were sitting in that storage unit thinking, "Man, this is a great song. This is really cool. We got the lyrics done, we got the melodies done, and the energy was great," and we're like, "Alright, cool. Alright, let's go get something to eat." It was like that was the end of it, right? Fast forward without any real strategy or anything, a million stories in between. I'm walking out on stage in Germany. We had signed a record deal. Everything had fast forwarded dramatically. I'm walking out, playing that same rhythm. And then the guitars started kicking in. Then the vocalist got in, soaring over top of the riffs. And I'm seeing all these Germans and their heads jumping up and down, and I'm like, and they're singing the lyrics back to us in English. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, how the heck did this happen? It was powerful, and it was a moment that gave me so much joy and energy, but also accountability to what had just happened. And I'll never forget. Fast forward another 10 years, all kinds of cool stories. And I'm sitting on my couch, and the whole industry is collapsed around me, the whole music business that we were a part of. And I'm like, I just got to go back into small business. And I'm like, how do I do that? I know people all over the world, and but I don't know anybody. I don't even know my neighbor because I've been gone for 10 years. And the thought process started coming to me. I was like, wait a minute, all I got to do is set the tempo. And then I gotta find a guy that can bring some foundational elements to this idea or this service offering, right? And then I gotta find another guy that can bring some melody to it. And then I gotta find a bannerman or a singer that can dictate or create the lyric of what we're trying to create as a company. And then we can create a song that will impact our customers and our families that are involved in the business. And so my mindset has been, how do I create songs that impact people multi-generationally from a legacy mindset with what we create as a service offering to the community, whether that be, white label, blue collar, whatever the scenario is, it doesn't really matter to me. It could be the best donuts in the world. It could be the coolest title insurance in the world. It could be restoration. It doesn't matter. How do we create a band that can create a song based on the individual skills that are all put together that are going to impact people's lives and change the trajectory of people's lives? And so that became my mantra from learning how to play drums when I was 10 years old, that my job is to set the tempo. And then my next job is to find someone that can carry the rhythm. And then the two of us are finding someone that can create the melody. And then we all create a song. So that gives you the quick, snapshot of how my brain works from a business perspective, and it allows me to flow in and out of different industries, um, almost seamlessly because I just have to set the tempo, right? And I gotta stay in my lane. There's nothing better than a drummer that, um, stays in the pocket, right? If you get a drummer that can stay in the pocket, get that groove with the bass, that song can breathe, that organization can grow, and you're gonna be able to change people's lives. And so I absolutely love creating songs through business in the season of life that I'm in right now.
Man, I love that. I love everything about what you just said. That's amazing. And don't when you're playing the drums, don't speed up, right?
Right.
Stay in the
Yeah.
pocket.
Stay
Don't
in the
don't put
pocket, man. It's not what you can play, it's what you don't play.
right.
An incredible buddy of mine, um, that I thought was the freaking baddest drummer in the world, and he looked over at me, and I was always like, "Man, I can't do a riff like that. I can't do a fill like that or whatever," and he's like, "Bro, it's not what you can play, it's what you don't play." He's like, "Hang in that pocket." I'm like, "Oh." I don't know if that's justifying my inability or if it's or but it really resonated with me because I was like, I'm not built to do a kind of thing, right? Some guys are absolutely phenomenal at that, and I got better at it over time, but at the same time, for me, it was like the music didn't need it, right? And so, like the records that we put out, all four sound different, and they all have different style in terms of how we play, but at the end of the day, it's what the song needs that is allowing it to breathe and be able to be resonating with someone else. So it's a pretty cool thing that I'm still chewing through that whole methodology in my head right now.
Or if you're, just starting out on drums, can you play to a click? You
Yeah.
know? Can you stay on pace there? Um, for all my drumming, buddies out there, I know I need to ask the drummer of Decipher Down what, drum set he has, what's his favorites. I just give me the scoop on that.
Yeah, real quick, there's a lot of them beautiful things about being a drummer is that you can make a noise with anything, right? And so, but I loved a lot of different types of drums that were out there. Every sound and every style and every thickness of the rim and the type of head, like all everything made a sound, right? So as a percussionist, we loved everything. I mean, you could beat on a trash can and it'd still be cool. But I used Pearl drums, Pearl Masters kit, and that was my drug of choice, I guess you'd say. And then Zildjian and for cymbals, and then Aquarian for drum heads, and then you had Audix microphones these are all companies that I aligned with when I was touring full time, and they allowed to for me to be the best version of myself on tour, and then it allows us to collectively grow as brands together, right? So it was really, really fun.
Awesome, awesome. I bet you it was a pleasure to play that kit. I can only imagine how that's a great combination there. Um, it the I can imagine that, over those, 10 years plus that you were playing drums and traveling, there were some business, things that you had to learn pretty quickly. Any additional insights that, other musicians, people out there trying to make it that you learned man, this is business. This is something I need to learn, pretty quick. Is there anything like that that comes to mind?
Patience, absolutely. People will, without question, way overestimate what they can do in 12 months, and then they way underestimate what they can do in 3 years, right? And that is an ever evolving process when it comes to an entrepreneurial's mind or a producer's mind or whatever the scenario is. So being patient and understanding that there has to be a process that it happens, and you have to grind, and you have to have seasons of wins and losses, and it all plays into having a perspective on how you can impact whatever industry you're in. So being patient, but also intentional to say, I am not going to be lazy, but I'm not gonna pin all of my success on one thing. I'm gonna be I'm going to be, dedicated and, accountable to the things that I can control, which is showing up on time, showing up with a good attitude on time, being creative, not taking things personal. Like these are all things that are crucial for personal development, but allow you to impact people at a high level in whatever you're being tasked with. There is remarkable things that happen in spheres of influence that you have no control over on the good and the bad. But if you're controlling a lot of these things that you know you can control that are in your sphere of control, getting up, getting healthy, having a great attitude, being a good dad, being a good husband, being a good partner to someone in business, being serving someone unconditionally without trying to get something back. These are all things that will play into your future and pay back exponentially more than what you could ever do.
Yeah, I love that. And just one more time, was there anybody that, was a mentor to you? I'm sure you mentioned earlier different seasons of life. And I can think of, different people in my life, during that come in and out of my life that, without them, during that time, I might have been lost. And I feel like God puts people in your life for certain reasons. And, obviously with your father being a pastor, you had that spiritual foundation. But is there anybody like that you can think early or maybe even now that is
Mm.
kind of
Yep.
there for you?
Countless people. And and they've all come at significant seasons of my life, right? So, like for my dad, for instance, we don't agree on almost everything. We just very different mindsets, right? And but one thing he did impart to me that has carried me through so many things is loving people unconditionally. That has been a huge, um, benefit that I'm eternally grateful for. Even though my dad had 0 concept of sports, 0 concept of business, 0 concept of a lot of things, he taught me how to love people unconditionally, and that has been a huge win for me my entire life, even when it was incredibly painful, right? Um a second thing that just immediately comes to mind when I remember we were in the throngs of the whole band world and I was the dad, right? I was the drummer. I was the guy that I wasn't even the real musician. I just kept time. Eh, but, but I remember that we went and played a show in Oklahoma and I got introduced to this guy named Tim Foley, who was, an attorney, loved rock music, happened to come to the show, became a very great friend to the band. And he showed me how to be a business leader in the sphere of influence that he was a master at and be generous. And that has impacted my life dramatically. There's a difference between being able to provide a service and being willing to serve. Only one of those things is generous. And Mr. Foley taught me in multiple ways what we do and what we've been created to do is our service to our family, our friends, our business, our employees, our customers, whatever, right? And um, our ability to do that with generosity is what we're going to be ultimately measured by, right? Because if you don't lead with that, then it becomes a very hollow sense of success, right? And it has never returned void back to me. Even though sometimes I didn't win a certain thing or I didn't get what I wanted or I had to concede on something or whatever the scenario is, if I did it out of a sense of generosity, it has dramatically impacted my ability to lead well and to create change in industries that I've been tasked with. And so those are two people in my incredible journey that I've had hundreds of people speak into my life. Um, the two people that first come to mind. Mhm.
I would echo that, being a cheerful giver and referral partner and connector, has never returned void, at all at any point in business. And I love connecting people as well.
I
One
guess
more
to one more thing to that point, and
Yeah,
this is
sure.
something that I've been kind of resonating on for a while. And as a person of faith or someone that believes in that I've been created to do something here on this planet. Um, and I remember reading this in not that long ago where, you know, one thing that's extremely powerful is that um, what we've been created to do and what we have been blessed to do or empowered to do. It's not what it does for you by being able to go and create and to do these different things. It's you doing what you were built to do and then seeing that impact and how it affects other people's lives. Like that is a very powerful tool um, in terms of gratitude and in terms of impact, right? And so it's not so much you were created to, be the best sales guy in the world so you can support your family. It's you were created to be the best sales guy in the world so you can change your industry and impact the lives of your customers. Like that is the money is the byproduct of you doing cool things in an accountable, generous way. So, um, I would really pound those things into you because if you don't think that way now, then there's something that you need to deal with personally or internally that allows you to change that methodology. Because otherwise, it's a selfish place, and that's a lonely place, and then that is a toxic place eventually.
Yeah, I like the thinking of money as certificates of appreciation for a
Yes.
job well done, right?
Hmm.
It's a one way to think about it. Um, One last question. This is a remote podcast. So if there's an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, I should say, that is getting ready to start their journey and sees a gap, wants to deliver some type of service in an industry, and is going to start because majority of businesses, I think there's like a statistic, it's over 50% of businesses created nowadays are remote first businesses. What would you say to that entrepreneur that they got to get right out of the gate?
Gosh, that's a loaded question. You know, there
You're
there's a
right.
there's a personal development side of that that I'd like to lean in on, but then at the other side of it is collaboration. You have to nail collaboration. Don't go out there saying, "How can I build the biggest and the baddest company in the world?" You go out there and say, "How can I bring my skill set and service offering to our said industry and collaborate with people that are like-minded?" I'm seeing a great example of that right now with Nokia or NVIDIA with Nokia. Like, no one's even heard the term Nokia in decade, right? But all of a sudden, they became relevant again because NVIDIA you did a cooperation and did a collaboration with them, right? So one of the biggest parts about collaboration to me is by far what NVIDIA is doing right now in the marketplace, right? They're evaluated at what a $5 trillion company right now, and but they're instead of saying the traditional model of like, hey, let's build a fortress and a moat around it and go buy and gobble up everybody else and shut down all of our competitors and blah 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 blah, like a traditional model would be they're like, "Hey, how do we partner with everybody in the market, right? And how do we make their business better with our product, right? And how do we collaborate with our quote unquote competitors, right? And how do we intertwine all of these technology pieces, right? And so to me, I think that's a really cool example of a new way to collaborate that technology is building that bridge for, but the leadership is in a place that they can lead that well, right? And so for if you're starting out as an entrepreneur and you're just getting started, think about how you can be best at what your individual skill is or the song that you've been able to create with the team that you've built and say, how do I collaborate with this? Because speed to market is more important than you being right. Okay. You got to understand that collaboration and being willing to serve even your quote unquote competitors well, as long as you have alignment in terms of vision and values, it's incredible what can be accomplished.
I couldn't agree more. Josh, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you being on the podcast. I typically try to uh, extend an invitation to catch up with you here in about a year or so and see where you're at with all your businesses. If I know you, probably you'll have a couple more. May,
There's
unless
a
you're
couple in the pipeline right now. So yeah,
there you there
yeah.
you go. So we'll catch up with you then. Where can people connect with you if they want to get a hold of you and chat and consult?
Yeah, so I'm very active and accessible on social media. So The Rhythmic Way on Instagram, that's RHYTHMIC, The Rhythmic Way. And of course, Facebook as well, Joshua Oliver. They made me use my legal name because it's verified. So if you see a blue check mark, then that's me. Thank God. And then on LinkedIn, definitely search me up. Connected. I'm verified on there as well. Very active on LinkedIn. And if there's a way that I can collaborate with you, or you want to, chop up some idea or something like that, I'm always accessible and ready to do it. So happy to chat.
Awesome. If this conversation helped you, tap follow, subscribe in your podcast app. It helps other remote first leaders find the show, and drop a quick rating, a 1 sentence review with your biggest takeaway, and share this episode with a founder or an entrepreneur who'd benefit. Links and resources are in the show notes. This is Remote First Innovators. I'm Jake Gump, and we'll see you in the next one.
Remote First Innovators podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.